I keep an eye on the attendee list, so.
So
but-
you'll let, okay, thank you. So good afternoon. This is the Annapolis Heritage Commission meeting, and we're meeting virtually. The date is March the 2nd, and I'd like to call to order this meeting. And as a tradition that our vice chair has set up, we'd like to just remind you of our purpose. And the purpose of the Annapolis Heritage Commission is to advise on and facilitate the development of programs and activities, which includes landmarks and signage. But our goal is to increase the public awareness, appreciation, and preservation of the cultural heritage of the city of Annapolis. And that's how we serve. If you can take a look at the minutes from our last meeting from January the 5th, you were sent those in advance. And I'd like you to just take a look at those and see if there's anything. It looks like Karen has an addition or a comment.
I do have one edit, and Kimberly, I probably misspoke, but this is under number 1, Sinclair Wright signage. It said that the grand opening is scheduled for March 18th. It's actually March 19th. So I apologize if I misspoke, but if you could correct that in the minutes, that'd be great.
That's okay. I'll correct it right now.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that, Karen. Any other corrections or additions? If I have no other corrections or addition, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll move to.
Okay, Reed. And
Yeah, I'll move to-
second,
David.
it looks like Reed has moved to approve the minutes as submitted, and David has, no,
Not as submitted, as corrected.
as corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Reed. And David, you've second?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, we have a slight delay. Sorry about that. All in favor of accepting the
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion has passed. All right.
Ms. Brown, I have already made that change, so the version that was approved as amended is now correct.
Oh, thanks
Thank
for
you,
being so
Kimberly.
efficient. I
Yes.
really appreciate that. Okay, so John has joined us. John Towers. Thank you so much for joining us, John. So I'd like to introduce our speaker for the night, and then I'd like us to introduce ourselves to her. How about if we introduce ourselves first to Ellen, and then she can all introduce herself to us. Ellen, I would like to guess that your name is Von Carrion, or is it?
You hit it right on the head, Marcy.
Okay, great. That's
Properly stated. Thank you.
okay, wonderful. So I'm going to start with how I see people on the screen. So I'm going to start with you, David. Could you please introduce yourself to Ellen?
Yeah, my name is David Haight, and I live in Annapolis, and I'm interested in history, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet
And
you.
Reed Bowman, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, Alan. I also live in Annapolis, a fairly new member of the Annapolis Heritage Commission, and excited to hear you chat with us tonight about this topic.
And Robert.
Good evening. I'm Robert Worton. I've been a member of the commission since 2012. I've retired as working as a historian at the Library of Congress several years ago. I've worked more than several years ago. I retired several years ago.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you,
you,
Robert.
Robert.
Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Timer Brown. I'm the Vice President of Historic Annapolis, and I've been on the Heritage Commission. I think this is my 3rd year. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Sam?
So I'm Samuel Biddle, lifelong resident of Annapolis, grew up in Ward 1. I just want to comment that I finished school down in Williamsburg, so I remember seeing quite a few Washington Rochambeau route. I always was trying to figure out what the route was because it took you on some pretty back roads, pretty windy, off the interstate roads down there. And I'm a fan of taking the side route or kind of the side road. So I enjoyed, I've done my fair share, at least on the Virginia Peninsula of it.
Oh, cool. Good to meet you, Samuel. William and Mary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
And John?
I'm John Tower. I'm driving, and I'm Chief of Preservation for the City of Annapolis.
Thanks, John. Be careful driving. And we have, Kim is taking our minutes tonight, and she is our assistant to our commission. So Kim, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate your professionalism. And of
pleasure.
course, we couldn't be doing this without Madeline. So thanks again, Madeline. So Ellen, just wanted to introduce yourself to us before we get started.
Okay. As Marcy said, I'm Ellen Von Karajan. I am the Executive Director of the National Washington Rochambeau Revolutionary Route Association. We commonly go, since that is such a long name, by the name of W3R, the W for Washington, the 3 R's for Rochambeau Revolutionary Route. I've been, I've been involved first as a volunteer, then as a board member since 2006. In 2017, I was asked to take on a part-time role as executive director, and I have been with the trail pretty much day and night ever since. So I wanted to thank you all, thank you, Marcy, in particular, for inviting me to make this presentation. Annapolis and really the Four Rivers Heritage Area, in my estimation, should be a hub on this trail. We were talking briefly, Kimberly and Madeline and myself before. I mean, I do believe that Annapolis has done one of the most extraordinary jobs on the East Coast of historic preservation and maintaining the historic fabric of your community. If you took the cars off the streets, you could easily imagine the forces walking through the streets there. And that cannot be said of very many communities in even along the trail. We have some, but Annapolis is certainly a stellar one, plus a site of so many important events that occurred during that time. Marcy encouraged me to talk in depth about sort of where we came from, who we are, what our aspirations are. So if I get too long of wind, just someone raise their hand and I will shorten my speech here. But I just wanted to begin at the very beginning because it's confusing to people. We are a 501c3, a private organization. We, the trail, the National Trail itself is a unit of the National Park Service. We have a superintendent, we have a trail administrator. They happen to be housed at Valley Forge. Neither the trail nor W3R own any properties or have any, we don't have a headquarters per se. And it's fairly typical for trails to be officed or quartered in what we refer to as the square parks, places like Gettysburg or Valley Forge or Fort McHenry. Our group began many years ago to lobby Congress to have this particular route designated as a National Historic Trail. And we are one of 30 trails nationwide. There are 19 scenic and historic trails. All of these were enabled by a piece of federal legislation, the National Trail System Act of 1968. And what is different about trails and historic and scenic trails, what's different about trails is that this Trail System Act of 1968 requires volunteer participation through what is known as a cooperative management model. And the reason for this really is our trail is about 700 miles long, land miles, and probably better than 2,000 nautical miles. Some of the trails are 2,000 miles. And the park and Congress realized that they would never be able to fund the staffing for so many National Park Service employees. So they wanted to have volunteers all along the trail who would be the long arm of the Park Service and the really the feet on the ground and the people who would put together many of the programs. So we are not a friends group. That's a different sort of organizational structure within the National Park Service. We are actually managing partners. And the kinds of things that we do are we organize programs, we raise funds. The Park Service, because it is a federal government entity, cannot go to Congress and ask for any increases in funding. They can't ask for things like trail at boundary extensions, things like that. That is left to us as the private sector partner to do. So one of the roles that we play is that we are constantly in touch with our congressional leaders. We are currently advocating for funding for the trail and for the Park Service because they only have one full-time person. Our trail administrator, Johnny Carowin, is really a staff of one. And as we begin to really start to make plans for the 250th anniversary of the founding of this nation in 2026, there's a whole lot that we could be and should be doing. So we are constantly back and forth with the Congress people who are on the trail, and we run through many different congressional districts. One of the things that we do is we put together, I guess you would say, frameworks or enabling tools so that our local groups have the means that they need to be able to do things. So one of our current projects right now, which is taking place, it's actually headquartered in Virginia right now, and Virginia will be the pilot, but it is a program to develop a teacher's toolkit. And it started through working with the social studies department headquartered in the Capitol in Richmond with a teacher survey. We went to the teachers and asked them, and this is for Title I schools, and asked them, what do you think you need to be able to reach our students with the important messages of our history? And what do you think your students want? Because those of us who are in my generation, we had completely different ways that we learned than the kids do. So we started with this teacher survey. We had responses from 50 teachers, and we are very busy working with that program. We'll be taking a sampling of what we think the teachers have requested from us into the students. And the amazing thing about this grant is we won't have the teachers evaluating us. We will have the students evaluating us. There's an online survey for the kids that's a part of this. And that way we will know is what we think is it having any impact on them at all? Do they recall anything from it? Is there any social emotional learning going on in the course of it? So, I mean, this has been it's a major kind of project for us, but once we have it developed as a pilot, changes will have to be made because Virginia doesn't follow the same standards of learning that some of the other states do. We will have this available to sites on the trail, museums on the trail, because, so many of our sites do, they encourage field trips or they work with the students. It's not just within the school system, but we'll also be able to make this available to any school system or any group of teachers that want it. Another example, very different than this, is because it's quite a bit of work to do it, we make the applications for the different states, the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plans. Well, let's put it this way. There was a huge infusion of or a huge release of funds in what is known as the Land Water Conservation Fund in the final days of the Trump administration. This creates a pool of funds for communities, for sites along the trail to be able to improve their communities, obviously all focused around the historic theme, but that's never been a problem for us. So you must have one of these, you must be recognized in the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, or you do not qualify for these funds. So usually there's both you all are probably completely familiar with these because I'm sure you use them in the things that you do, but if not, not every state does it. It's usually a 3-year period. So far, we've applied for 3 states, but I will be making the application for Maryland in the very near future, and we'll be working so that all of the sites that are on our trail, including historic Annapolis, will be eligible for this funding source.
At the meeting on your phone.
Any questions on that? Any questions so far? Okay. I guess 2 weeks ago, I was one of 3 trails that was asked by the Partnership for the National Trail System, which is sort of the umbrella agency that all of us are members of, to make a presentation to the new National Park Service Director, Director Chuck Sams. And we're really excited to have him because we haven't had a fully appointed director of the National Park Service for the last 5 years. And I was asked to present to him about what the trail needs were, what some of the issues are, and about how we can continue to do the kinds of programs that we want to do, but also help to assist with some of the larger issues that are confronting our nation right now. He is a Native American. His Native American name is Mockingbird with a big heart. You could certainly see this big heart. And I think that we will be very fortunate to have him as the head of our group. We're a relatively small organization at the moment. We have 1 full-time person, that's me. We have 3 part-time people. We have an annual operating fund budget of about $125,000, which we usually also match by securing grants for projects of $100,000 to $200,000 as well. Otherwise, our other sources of funds are memberships and donations. As I said earlier, we own no property. We are entirely dependent on the stories, on the sites, on the historic districts, on the communities to tell the story of the trail. The trail has a foundation what's called a foundation document, which sort of states what the basic foundational basis for the trail is. it has a long-range interpretive plan, which spells out the various themes that one can and cannot, or really it just spells out the ones that one can interpret, and then a trail access study, a comprehensive management plan, which should have been done many years ago, but wasn't for whatever reason, will begin later this year. And that is when they will be reaching out to all of the Park Service will be reaching out to all of the stakeholders in the community and soliciting information from them. We really, that will be a kind of general overlay plan, but as you will see later in the presentation, we are also really advocating to Congress right now to provide additional funds to us so that we can bring in professional planners to enable us to work more closely with some of the communities and some of our underserved areas. I'm talking about firms like Lardner Klein or Wallace Roberts Todd, et cetera. Some of the unusual things about our trail, I guess, are that we have an international component in that because of the French alliance, we have close ties to the French, both to the French organizations that are within this country and to many of the little cities, towns, and villages where some of the heroes came from when the French came to America to participate in the war for independence. We are currently working as quickly as we can, because one place where we have really not done much work is with being able to really know the tribal nations' history and involvement in the Revolutionary War, and where, we know that 75% of the East Coast tribes, they don't live on reservations. They live, just right in our communities all over the place. So in some ways it's harder to inreach or outreach to those communities, but we are working on that right now. And there is an ancestral lands mapping project. And I know Maryland has also begun really taking a look at its tribal history, but there's also an ancestral lands mapping project that is currently underway. And we're going to be relying heavily on that and trying to do a better job of being more inclusive in the stories that we tell. I did, and I don't have any questions on anything so far. Okay, I put together what I know is going to be too much, so I will go quickly through the strategic plan that our organization, that W3R, has put together, because we certainly recognize that we have the opportunity, we think, to play a major role, given the story of the march to Yorktown in this upcoming 250th. So we really wanted to start early, even though it's not that early, to begin early to organize ourselves to be able to realize this potential. So Madeline, are you there? And thank you. So I'm going to just go through this very quickly, but to give you some of the ideas about the things that we are looking at doing. And this is a framework. It's a draft. The actual meat on the bones will be finally approved by our board later in April. But I did ask them if they thought that it was all right to share this with you, and given the importance of Annapolis to the trail, they felt that if you had invited me, that I should go ahead and present some of the elements of this. So you can see we go 2022 to 2026, but some of the work that is proposed here, we recognize will be the work really of a generation. It's not going to come to an abrupt end in 2026. So next slide. So here's our vision. This may be modified, as I said, just a little bit, but I think we've had many meetings now to work this through with our board. And the vision is, through a connected and preserved trail, we strengthen trail communities and expand the relevance of our shared stories today and for future generations. Our mission is to educate the public about the American Revolution, the Washington Rochambeau National Historic Trail, and to collaborate with the diverse communities and partners in stimulating economic development and fuller realization of America's founding ideals. Next slide. Here's our central values. Heritage conservation. We promote local history and tourism by supporting the preservation and conservation of land, water, and historic sites along the trail. Education. We share history, knowledge, and stories of the diverse individuals who helped achieve independence. Equity. We recognize the importance and celebrate the diversity of every race, ethnicity, gender, age group, and nation that contributed to the American Revolution, and in both our narratives and our infrastructure improvement requests. Accountability, we strive to maintain a balanced and open culture that remains aware of its priorities, mission, and people, to provide data to demonstrate this and to seek feedback. Responsibility. We apply sustainable principles to support the development, management, and conservation of communities and waterways along the trail. And finally, although it's interwoven with everything, tourism. We strive to increase equitable access to the outdoors and encourage efforts to improve the economic vitality of communities along the trail through tourism and infrastructure improvements. One of the aspects of this National Trail System Act that I spoke about earlier is that it wanted to provide, this was in 1968, way many years pre-COVID, that it wanted our trails to provide both a historical, but also an outdoor recreation opportunity for people to be able to be outside and enjoy the great outdoors. It's a little harder on our trail because we are the most urban trail, and other than some of the rural roads that Samuel talked about earlier, a lot of our trail just sort of parallels or became I-95. So we have special challenges in terms of how we would define providing access to the outdoors, but more on that will follow. Next slide, please. So next slide. So I'm just really going to go through the desired outcomes here because I don't want to take your entire evening. But what our desired outcome is that students and the general public know that it was France, other nations, and multicultural individuals who provided aid and support to the colonies to help America achieve independence. And so we developed some strategies. We have defined some success metrics. And one of the big things here is to really fully participate in the 250th anniversary planning and the implementation of programs for that. We have another whole section of what the specific activities would be, how they would be funded, and a timeline for achieving them. Next slide. Next slide, please. Here's another outcome very important to us. Local communities are proud to be on the trail route and advocate to invest resources for creating access to and engaging the public in educational, recreational, and history-related activities. There's a wide gap between communities such as Annapolis or Fells Point, where I spent a great deal of my professional career, and some of the other underserved trail communities that lie along our trail. So who really don't know that the trail exists, don't see any relevance of the trail or history to their own lives. And we want to try to begin to move the needle just a little bit on that front. Next slide, please. Obviously, we need to address the topic of resources. So sufficient resources have been gathered to develop and interpret the trail corridor, including the driving and the historic route. What you were addressing, Samuel, was the historic route, which is not currently on the Park Service's website. What we have is a driving route. We have the route that is that's more tourist friendly, but there are people like you and me who would like to go kind of off-road and see the other spaces. So one of the projects we have underway right now is a cultural resource study, an inventory of the sites that are on the historic route so that we can do a historic route overlay to the driving trail for the aficionados and others who want to do this. So, so we are very actively involved in really seeking both private and public funding to support our programs right now. Next slide, please. And then, of course, what we call the key enablers, the supporting elements that we know it's going to take to make our strategic work possible. Next slide. And I mean, this is probably just absolutely what every organization needs to be doing, and is probably very well known to you. But we know we need to invest in talent, both at the board and the organizational level, and through a combination of volunteer, contract, and as I said, we don't really have any employees. I mean, I'm a contract employee. We're all contracted through the cooperative management agreement. So at some point, it would be nice to actually have a real staff. Not that we don't work like real staff, but it's a subtle difference there. And so we know we need to do better in our administration. We need to really hone our communications expertise, and we need to develop much more program expertise in the areas of urban planning, education, the program I described earlier in Virginia, in history, and in serving the public. Next slide, please. So we are continuing the evolution of the board and volunteer committees that will support our work. Right now, we're engaged in a really intense effort with a consultant to really look at the structure and the composition of our board of directors. And of course, our board is obviously a working board. I mean, we have 148 volunteers out there, and they are a working board. So sometimes it can be a little hard to keep the balance of work and focus organized, because most boards just set policy. Our board sets policy, but then they are out there on the trail organizing programs for us as well. So we also, no matter what work they're doing in the field, which is invaluable to us, we also we need to sharpen our focus, sharpen our board's focus on strategy and policy and monitoring and resourcing the organization, because without that, the field work is not going to be as successful. I should also add that our volunteers, last year, we accumulate the hours and report them to the Partnership for the National Trail System. But last year, our volunteers, in using independent sector rates to value their time, matched every dollar that the federal government invested in us through the Park Service on a 3-to-1 basis. And that's just using independent sector rates, or whereas we have people who are, sophisticated professionals who probably would normally bill $100 an hour. Next slide, please. So we know that we need to raise an incremental $300,000 for ongoing operations. And we know that we need to have a campaign to support the strategic implementation of the programs that are outlined in that strategic plan. We know too that we do not wish to have an undue reliance simply on the National Park Service, because, changes could occur. You never know what's going to happen when you put all your eggs in one basket, and we need to diversify our funding sources more than we have. And we need to look at both national foundations, individuals, and other trail community resources. Next slide. And, we need to develop evaluation and reporting of our performance to the outcomes that we've defined or will define as we implement this plan. We definitely need to develop a brand positioning and brand elements, because we're having a bit of a problem with this W3R-US identity. It's just people say, well, what is that, like WD-40? I mean, we need to do something about our branding. And we're already creating an annual operating plan, but now we need to go back and make sure that those annual operating plans outline the key activities to support our strategies and our outcomes, and just to continually set and refine the objectives for metrics for success, so that we're not just sort of whistling in the wind. And we need to align our financial resources towards fulfilling those priority activities. Next slide. And here's just an example of one of the ways in which we are working right now, and we're working with Congress. We have Bonnie Watson Coleman, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, and a number of other congressional leaders who are looking to help us implement this. We've been working with them for the past 2 years. So this is our own ask of Congress for our trail for the things that we would like to accomplish. So next slide, please. So I've already indicated we were designated formally. President Obama signed our trail along with the Captain John Smith Trail and the Star Spangled Banner Trail into effect in 2009. We do pass through US cities in 9 states and DC. We run through 35 congressional districts, and we have 115 high potential sites. And we know that we are getting ready for this major commemoration of the 250th anniversary. And that map that you see is really the driving route that I referred to earlier. It really needs to have a historic overlay of the historic route added to that. Next slide, please. What we did in order to be able to really tie in with some of the federal funding resources that are available now, we selected 12 major cities that we refer to as founding cities. And Annapolis is not in here because we chose areas that were most in need of economic investment and that had a high poverty rate, which was well above the average, and people that also had limited sense of, or communities that we know have a limited sense of connection to their history, our history, and limited access to green spaces and public art. And, we pulled the demographic data, looked at the census maps, and found out where these pockets were that were on our trail. But we also know that between these cities, and also part of the plan, are hundreds of towns that would also benefit from increased connectivity, increased outdoor recreation, better climate resiliency, marketing, tourism, and placemaking. So this isn't just about these founding cities, but this has been the central thrust of our argument. And you can see on the map the ones that we named. Next slide, please. So these cities have some major infrastructure needs, some of which are defined in their city planning departments. We saw this as an opportunity to address racial equity and to incorporate some of the elements of the 30 by 30 goals, while also expanding the relevance of our founding story. We see this as an opportunity to provide access to green spaces and public art and education to some of our underserved communities. And really, we want to take a look at seeing if we can't do some place making in these communities. And you can see the numbers there on the chart of the cities that we selected and their demographic information. Next slide. This is what our trail looks like in some of those cities. People have no idea that they're on a trail. They have no idea what the history of their community is, how it relates to the founding story. So, I mean, we have a dossier of about 50 such photographs, but this is one of the things that we would like to work on. And sometimes access to the outdoors can just mean simple things, such as having some kind of tree canopy along the locations that are on the trail, or just having basic trail markers there. But we think it means a lot more than that, because we think we really need to go into these communities and involve people and ask them how it is that they want to create some expression of their history in their community. And this is where the sort of the murals and the public art and those kinds of ideas come in. Next slide, please. So got this quote from the Natural Resource Defense Council, and 74% of communities of color and 70% of low-income communities in the US live in nature-deprived areas without equitable access to outdoor recreation opportunities, public art, or their own local heritage. And then, of course, the quote from George Erasmus, where common memory is lacking, where people do not share in the same past, there can be no real community. Where community is to be formed, common memory must be created. These are themes that run through a great deal of our work. Next slide. And so we've really focused hard on telling the full story of our founding. I think that we're members of the American Association of State and Local History, and we're just delighted to see that there is a tremendous movement afoot to be able to really tell the full story of our American heritage. The backdrop behind me is a painting that was just recently unveiled at the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia by the famed artist Don Troiani, and it commemorates the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, which was made up of, it was a truly integrated regiment. It had African Americans, it had Narragansett and other Native Americans, and then it had regular, white soldiers in it as well. So we partnered with them. The Park Service paid for the painting. We worked with their staff to be certain that we brought members of the communities in to be able to see this. Next slide, please. And then, here's our legislative agenda that we have taken, that we discuss with our congressional representatives all of the time. So we are looking obviously for money for the trail itself and increased partner support for us, where we realize that the things that we are proposing are going to take a huge investment, and we have asked for 22 million. Some of that is likely to come out of funds like the Land Water Conservation, the Great American Outdoors Act, America the Beautiful, but we're really working to put some flesh on the bones of this. We're really looking at creating an urban park core. I mean, all the service corps are going to be receiving additional funding, and we see this as an opportunity also to be able to create jobs, to do a better job of environmental stewardship, and also create jobs. And then we are also always talking about our sister trails and the Southern campaigns, such as the Over Mountain Victory Trail, which goes through Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, and the Liberty Trail. And then we also advocate for things that would create sources of funds for sites and for our state groups, like the Transit to Trails Act, the Outdoors for All Act, the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership. We advocated for the African American Burial Ground Study, which I believe was just approved in Congress fully last week. South Carolina National Heritage Area is trying to create a heritage corridor. We support, the East Coast Greenway stimulus package, and last but not least, the National Scenic Trails Parity Act, and that's only because there are 3 trails that, for largely, we think, because of administrative error, never were recognized as units of the National Park Service, which means that they can't qualify for a lot of these other funds that those that are recognized can. Next slide. Is that the last slide, maybe? Oh. All right, so what would we do with this money? Well, first of all, we'd in-reach to identify some of these underserved communities and the tribal and slave descendant groups, to seek advice on putting our projects together. We would outreach to partners and affinity organizations, such as your group, but also urban leagues, existing parks and trail networks, tree equity programs, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, since that was such an active area along the trail, and then site and museum partners along the way. We really are into this idea of planting the street trees and acquiring land for public use where abandoned housing and industrial sites stand now, just to put pocket parks in, to preserve the encampments. There were no battles that were fought along the course of this trail, but there were the encampment sites, and many of them are already developed. The few that are left, we would like to hold on to. We do want to hire professional planners to help us to develop a more detailed, comprehensive management plan for areas along the trail. And we want to develop a plan for the whole story of the Yorktown March and have a communications plan to really communicate this with the goal of really both increasing community cohesion and unity and really enhancing tourism to all of the 250th Revolutionary War, the 250th anniversary trail organizations. And I've talked and talked. I hope I haven't bored you, but I mean, this is the direction that we are heading in. If you look at what our values are, going way back to the beginning of the presentation, they spell heart with 2 E's, because one of the roles that we think that trails can play is just helping with this whole concept of empathy and really unity. I mean, we were a divided nation from the very beginning. I mean, the Revolutionary War was in its own way the first Civil War. I mean, we've never really not been a divided nation. But the miracle is that, you know, we have developed our founding principles, and our Constitution is such that we can argue and we can debate and we can be divided, and we still hold together as the United States of America, and always manage to pull together when the times get tough. So we believe our trail can assist in some of these less tangible. And I think these are also goals of the 250th commemoration of the presidential commission. So if we can encourage dialogues, if we can go into some of the underserved communities, we think this would be a wonderful thing. Having said that, we know that we are totally going to be reliant on communities such as Annapolis to really be able to put the fine point on this. I mean, we don't have, as I said, everything that we do relies on what happens in the local community. So it would be my job to ask you, what is it that you think we could assist with, one, and two, I need to ask you to also direct me into what your priorities are and how it is that we could be of assistance with that. And I have one other topic, and that is that when I looked back over the file for Annapolis, I see that we have had some signage issues, I'll call them, down there, where I think we had an overzealous volunteer who had posted some signs without the proper approvals from the commission. And I just wanted to say that all of that is about to be corrected, because we certainly want to work in full cooperation with what your guidelines are. And we will be taking a look at that, and we will be coming with some proposals for some interpretive waysides. We also probably in Maryland, in Virginia, the state of Virginia Department of Transportation will fund highway marker signs for them. They will fund them, they will install them, and all at the Virginia taxpayers' expense. In Maryland, we have to locate the funds to have assigned engineering drawings developed, which is a very expensive proposition. But this is something that I am pursuing right now. And as a matter of fact, I'm waiting for a call back from Michael Osborne, who manages this program in the State Highway Administration, because we really feel that having the trail markers leading people into Annapolis, just the highway signs themselves, such as you saw put up for the Star Spangled Banner Trail. And here I'm talking about the federal highway, the signs that go on federal highways. We think this is extremely important too, because right now no one knows there is a trail. We're not directing anybody into the Four Rivers Heritage Area or into Annapolis or any of the other historic districts. So we're going to give some priority to the issue of signage. I've spoken quite a lot. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and your reactions, and to get some guidance from you on how we can best work together.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen, for the very comprehensive presentation. We really have such a better understanding of the work that you do. So thank you so much. I just had a couple, I think I missed just a couple clarification questions. You said you had did you call it a cultural resource database?
No, a cultural resource study usually results in, you get an end product, which is usually an inventory, can have, in our case, we're looking for it to be an inventory. It would indicate who, whether it was privately owned or whether it was owned by a municipality or a county. It would have the GIS data points on it. It would have what its significance was. In some cases, there might not be any significance, except that it might be one of the few evocative landscapes that's still left, the kind of things that Samuel was talking about. I mean, we're in the megalopolis. We don't have that much, where you could just go out in the field and say, this must have been what it was like for them when they were marching through. But generally, it would have a statement of significance that would link it to either a historical personage that was associated with the trail, or with a meeting, or with a march, or something along those lines. So we have what's known as an asset inventory, but it hasn't been updated since something like about 2005. So that's our goal for that cultural resource study. And we hope that it will point several directions. One, point the direction for those sites and those encampment sites that we would like to see acquired either through a land trust or through the National Park Service's land acquisition program. So these areas could be protected forever. That it would point out to us those communities that might have ideas for, parks or trails that could feature the historic stories of the trail. So yes, we have one, Marcy, but it's so out of date that's why we're doing it again. It will also focus on the historic aspect, the historic routes, because and on what I would refer to as the spur routes, because the officers did not usually favor walking along with 3,000 dusty men in the dead heat of summer. They were usually on their horses. And the French really had a great desire when they weren't engaged in battle. They wanted to see what this country looked like. Many of them kept travel diaries. So there were all of these side routes, like, for example, in Southern Maryland, von Closen's and his group, they took a route through Southern Maryland. So we want to be able to include the spur routes. And the other thing to which we've paid no attention, and this will be particularly significant, I think, for Annapolis is, and I know I've looked at some of the kinds of plans that are going, but we've paid almost no attention to the water route. And of course, Annapolis was where the troops debarked to get on the ships to anyone that could to actually sail to Yorktown. It was only the wagon trains after that traveled overland to Virginia to get there. So I hope, does that answer your question?
Yes, I was just trying to have a better understanding of what that document was. And then before I turn it over to the rest of the commission, my only other question was, it sounds like you've been working with Four Rivers, or have you, or contacted Four Rivers, or?
Of course, I've known Dr. Carol Benson for quite a while. Really, we were very interested in their boundary expansion because we have the Rising Sun Inn where Rochambeau stopped, and that was formerly excluded from the Maryland Heritage Area boundary. So I attended that particular meeting. And then, of course, every time that I write a grant application to the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, I am in touch with the trail, with those Maryland state historic districts, historic groups that are on the trail. So of course, because what I always have to do there is go back to every heritage areas to their comprehensive management plans and say how the work that I'm proposing in the grant that I'm writing fits them. So yes, I've been kind of looking at Four Rivers and at the other Maryland heritage areas and looking to their comprehensive management plans to see the places where we might be able to work with them as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to any of the other commissioners. I know that both my vice chair and Karen had some ideas and some questions.
Okay.
Well, let me start then, Ellen. We understand that there has been one placard sign erected already, and as you noted, there were some issues about that, and we would like to share with you through a communication after this meeting, maybe the details of that we found that we would suggest be changed to bring that particular sign up to historical accuracy. And we understand you may be wanting to put up some additional placards or signs or markers in the city of Annapolis. And that would be of interest to us if we could understand better what your other plans are. I for one have seen some of the early art that you had done, like the mural behind you is very, very beautiful. I like that approach. And we had commented earlier about at least one of those murals, and some corrections were made very, very quickly, and we were happy to see that. So yes, that would be something I'd be interested in knowing more about other markers that you're planning to put up within the city.
Yes, and I would certainly welcome, and I really apologize to this commission and to the Historic Preservation Commission. I mean, we had one volunteer who was just completely, I can only say he was sort of on a mission from God to get signs up, and he really did not understand that there are processes and that really to get a good sign up, it's an interactive process with the community where you're placing it. It should also be a relationship building process. I go like this. I'm afraid that I was almost ashamed to show my face here since he was a part of our organization. But I would greatly welcome that. The letter was addressed to me, that came on the City of Annapolis letterhead. So I had the opportunity to see what the comments are, and I just want to assure all of you that that kind of thing will not happen again, and will not happen without advance consultation with all of you. I mean, to have a sign produced before you've really even had given local entities the opportunity to comment on it just seems, just doesn't make sense to me. But at any rate, I want to assure you that that won't happen again. But if you do, if you'd like to go ahead and share with me right now, I can certainly take notes, Robert.
Oh no! If you've seen the memo that Marcy prepared last year, 2021, yes. If you have a copy of that, if that's what you're referring to on the letterhead, then
yes,
I think that's the totality of what we have for that. So if you have that, and we could discuss offline or maybe exchanges of emails between you and Marcy and the rest of us, if there are any other fine points. I guess I'm curious, where do you sit when you're not behind that beautiful mural in Philadelphia?
Where do I sit? Oh,
yes.
The reason, I mean, that is the Don Traiani painting. I mean, I sit in, I'm working from my home office in Baltimore. I'm right here.
Oh, you're local.
I'm very local. And,
yeah. Okay. Understand.
And I think I shared this with Marcy, but maybe not. Just last Saturday, I came to Annapolis because I wanted to see the exhibit at the Banneker Douglas Museum on the Underground Railroad. And I did bring a screwdriver and a wrench because I was just going to pull that panel because I knew it was it needs to be taken out. So the only problem was I just couldn't get it. It kind of what do you want to call it? Not rusted into place, but it was stronger than I was. Let's put it that way. But it's a simple matter of taking out, I believe it's 4 screws, and that panel can come out until we have the chance to properly go through the procedures. And I also have the application form that we would need to complete. And I think we need to complete it. I think we need to start all over from the very beginning with that panel that's there in Eastport. And then I'm only too happy to share the other preliminary plans. But I have just almost finished writing a series of guidelines for installing interpretive signs, because this problem happened to happen in Annapolis, but this is something, in a way, it was useful that it did, because it shows what happens when you try to go off on your own and do something instead of collaborating with the local community. Our whole thrust is that we need to have good relationships, and we rely on the local community. So, so at any rate, I would have gotten it. I was all prepared to take it off myself last Saturday, but I'll be coming back again because I want to see the new exhibit and the new museum about Annapolis. So, and this time I may bring somebody who's got a little more muscle than I do, but I apologize for that. We've learned our lesson, and now I really want the direction as executive director that I'm giving to everyone is that before you acquire any art, before you do anything, you come with a concept and discuss it with the people on the commission who can give you some guidance, and they may also have some ideas. And I think in that letter there was a discussion about what portraiture of Lafayette could have been used. I mean, so the world is a big, rich place in terms of the kinds of people that we have who have knowledge about this trail. So I would like to use it all. So you'll be seeing that panel come out of there, and you'll be seeing us make application in the future. And I do apologize.
Thank you,
you
Ellen.
for that.
And I just want to say, this gives me an opportunity to invite you to an interpretive signage workshop. I'll send you information on it. It's actually run by the Four Rivers Heritage Commission, but I think you'd really enjoy it. Carol Benson has put it together, and it's March the 8th at 3:00. I'll send you information on it though, because I think you'd really enjoy it. And I have to say, Sam, I know Sam has a question, but Karen Brown had a really interesting, some interesting comments I think that would be helpful. We just are a commission of really smart, interesting people who love history and culture like you do. And we love the idea that you want to work with us, and because we have good ideas, and as you do. So Karen, would you want to share
So I just want to say, Ellen, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your willingness to work with us and correct that marker, because it's one thing that, as Marcy had said, this is a group of historians, Robert and David, and a number of really great resources that it's very important, especially to Historic Annapolis, that historical accuracy is paramount. So anything we can do to help enable moving that forward. And again, if you have some language that you want to vet by this commission, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that. What I had said to Marcy in preparation for this meeting, that Historic Annapolis is in the process of working with the city on virtual walking tours, and it's commensurate with the redevelopment of the city dock area. And I think your presentation really touched on what an exciting time this is in history as we're building and planning towards the semi-quincentennial, the 250-year signing, that it should open up some opportunities for collaborations. And one other idea that Marcy and I had talked about over an email exchange earlier was this idea of connectivity between some new interpretive markers that were just recently produced by Mark Hildebrand and Make Your Mark Media in Eastport, and then some of the work that John Tower is going to be working with Historic Annapolis in in City Dock and somehow providing some sort of connectivity between the two. Something else that, two other things that came up during your presentation that I wanted to mention is the National Park Service Chesapeake Division has been a great partner with the City of Annapolis and Historic Annapolis through their Gateways Initiative. And the new leadership there, Wendy O'Sullivan, is a great resource. And I know that there is some relationship with the Captain John Smith Heritage Trail. So perhaps that might be a resource that you can tap into, that field office. And then Wendy has been very involved in this Chesapeake National Recreation Area. It's a broader concept of looking at the historic and heritage significance of the Chesapeake Bay region, much broader. But their approach is these small, like hubs that have some federal footholdings. And again, that might be you talked about your, GIS mapping. Somehow there just seems some way to connect that effort with some of your heritage trails, either through some sort of mapping system or by recognition of points that can provide hubs of cultural activity, such as Annapolis.
Yes, and I really think that is so apropos. Wendy O'Sullivan is a dynamo, and she is frequently a speaker at some of the Partnership for the National Trail System things. She always has many good ideas. One of the things that another major project that we're working on right now is a travel app that would be narrated.
Cool.
And right, I mean, we have both Dr. Iris Rhode, who is a woman, recently got her PhD, wrote her dissertation on Chastellux, and she has managed to unearth archives with a lot of French information where they've been sitting in family estates in boxes for many years. So she brings a sort of take a look at our country, take a look at this trail through the eyes of the French, which is very different than how the Americans were seeing it. And we have then Dr. Robert Seelig, who's been the trail historian. So right now we're going back and forth with Johnny on what sites they are, because the narration is only supposed to focus on the high potential sites. But there are all sorts of ways that we could do much better with connectivity if we just, if I know what you're doing and you know what we're doing, then we can find ways to, to really expand that and really to make for, I think, a much better visitor experience. Because when I go, I want to know what's everything to do there. Well, where do I eat? Where do I take the kids? So I think it's really exciting. And I guess we're familiar with this proposal for the Chesapeake National Recreation Area to also be able to see how I fit into that, because sometimes it just gets like spaghetti, it gets confusing as to who's doing what when.
Sure. Yeah. There has been some rumblings. I don't think it's been formalized, but an idea of an Annapolis 250, much like the Maryland 250 and then the National 250 Commission, that would really look in earnest on ways to integrate programming and various opportunities building up to that 250. So I don't know, John, if you know anything about that, but that's something that we've been talking about internally. A desire in Historic Annapolis to be involved in some sort of Maryland Annapolis 250 celebration. So again, not formalized, but something to noodle over.
I think that would be amazing. I mean, we have in New York, Westchester, they are doing Westchester 250, some of the communities. And I just think that once you dignify it with your own commission, you can attract the funds and you can do so much more because you are coordinating what's, everything that's going on. And so I hope you do that.
Thank you, Ellen. That's all I have, Marcy.
Okay, thank you for those wonderful ideas and suggestions, Karen. And Sam?
Sorry, I sort of raised my hand jokingly when she said she just, needs some more muscle to rip the sign out earlier.
Oh, Samuel, can I call on you when I'm down?
Us together might be able to do it.
Okay.
Otherwise, my only comment was I really liked I liked the values page. I thought that it showed a lot of investment, kind of time and thought. It's the type of thing that I thought was a good external representation, and it, especially with the myriad challenges of kind of speaking to a narrative that works for all groups now. I thought it was broken out well. So I compliment that.
Well, thank you, and really thank our board and our strategic planning consultant, because it took a lot of, when we started out, we had 14 values, and then we found that we really only had those few, and then we found that they spelled heart with 2 E's. So, I mean, that was pretty good. I thought in terms of what we were trying to accomplish. I may call you, Samuel. You'll have to send me your email, and when I come down, I just need to bring the WD-40 and maybe a couple of different kinds of little wrenches.
Yeah, I wish I had a blowtorch. If I find somebody with that, then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Ellen?
Well, I'd like to say something. I have a blowtorch and I have WD-40, but I don't think we're going to need those. I'll take a look at it. Do you really want it removed?
Well, John, it is not accurate, number one. Number two, it was, I believe, I'll call it a rogue sign, meaning it was never brought in front of the commission. As far as I know, there was no permit that was ever issued for it. So from my perspective, and from the example that I am hoping to set for all trail communities, yes, I think it should be removed. And if you want to remove it, I'll come down and meet you. But if you want to remove it all on your own, I think it needs to be removed. And I think that we need to begin working primarily, I think, with Robert and to get this thing properly done. We need to start all over again and make the application and go to the and just figure out, is that the artwork that we want? I mean, Robert had some suggestions for some other artwork, and then just refabricate the sign. If we could leave the frame there, and I'm making the assumption that it could be.
Well, I'll take a look. I'll take a look tomorrow,
Okay.
and I'll give you an assessment. And if you want to remove it, and we can remove it and leave the frame there safely until we get another sign, I'll go ahead and take care of it.
My only question just to ask is, does it have some sort of approval of Art and Public Places Commission on it or something?
Sam, you are so right.
My only concern would be if you start ripping out something that has their stamp on it, this is, that could go somewhere real quickly.
Here's the thing. That it was the group that gave the okay was the mayor's office. Okay. And the mayor's office actually sent a representative to the dedication, because the sign was dedicated with representatives from W3R and representatives from the American Friends of Lafayette. So there was a dedication ceremony that took place there, and the mayor's office actually sent a representative. So our volunteer thought that if he had the mayor's approval, that was sufficient. He somehow managed to not know, or I don't know what he did. All I know is, and who is the head of the Art and Public Places group? I mean, because Ellen Moyer is involved with the Maryland committee, and I know she was saying, well, she was not in favor of removing the sign, but I can speak to her quite eloquently, I think, about the reasons that we do need to, we're only replacing it once we get it done right. But you all will have to advise me on the delicacies of, I mean, you know, I don't want to land you or land us in the middle of a political brouhaha when we could avoid it by skillful means.
Are you authorized to let's say give an order to that you want a sign removed, and if so, you know, is that the way that we want to proceed? That you issue something in an email and then we share that with art in public places?
I believe so. I mean, I believe I can say I am in receipt of the letter that we were talking about earlier, and that we recognize that we want the sign to be historically accurate, and that we will be replacing the sign, but in the interim, the existing sign will be removed. And I think I am the executive director, and I think that I can certainly issue that. I also think that it sends a strong message that to everybody that, you know, these sign placements in historic districts are group processes. So don't even think of it. I mean, just don't, because we don't even know what the local politics are, but I do know that our group, W3RUS, we want good relationships in communities, and we also have a commitment to accurate history. So let's do it. I can do that, John, but maybe I can get your email too, and I'll let you know, or I'll just send you a copy of it when I.
Ellen, why don't we start an email, John, and I'll include Robert, and the four of us start communicating. But I think it sounds as though, John, that if Ellen feels as though she has the authority, we could start an email communication if you believe that's the correct way to proceed, John.
Right, and then I'll share it with one of the mayor's representatives, and we can go from there. I want to make sure that we don't stir up a hornet's nest. Although I think there's really only one defender of this sign, and
it seems that if you're retaining the base, it demonstrates a commitment to maintaining the sign, but it needs to be amended to be historically accurate. So if you have that option, John, to keep the base and just remove the interpretive language that's being amended, that's much more palatable than having it disappear altogether.
Yes.
Can I suggest one other approach? Okay. Let me suggest something, another idea. How long, Ellen, would it take you to draft the revised text for us to look at?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really gonna really refer that to Robert to some extent, because I think he suggested, was it you, Robert, who suggested the text in the letter that was sent?
No, I think the letter that was sent was a collaborative effort with some of the other local historians here, and it was I think we were pointing out more some of the problem areas of it, rather than, and maybe there's some textual areas. It's really not the job of this commission to write your sign for you, but if you can maybe amend the text you have. What I'm driving at, if this is something that can be done somewhat expeditiously, perhaps we could leave the sign in place until a new one is approved and a new one is fabricated, and they could just be swapped rather than removing, because I think John is touched on a little bit of sensitivity there.
Yeah, yes, perhaps. No, I would favor that. I would say this. I mean, I can even go in and make an effort to using the information in the letter to edit the text. But then would you be sort of the linchpin to assist us in getting this to, I mean, do we have a Zoom meeting with the other historians who talked about this and talk it through, or would you send it to them and ask them if this suits better?
Well, our commission does that. So that's the job. That's one of our jobs, Ellen, is to approve and assist in language. So yes, if you draft it and send it to us, then
Okay.
we can kind of take it from there. But Robert's point is, we're not in the business is writing it for you.
Oh, I know.
But if you send it to us, then we will make the edit suggestions. And of course, we will work with we've got many historians on our commission. We work together for the edits and.
All right. And then I have one other wrinkle, which I didn't think of previously, but, that doesn't have the logo of the National Historic Trail on it, which usually credibility to things. So even after we get this historical review, the Annapolis, I still have to send it to the trail administrator for them to sign off. So there might still be one more consultation or one more, one more back and forth. Although hopefully, if I can say to him that through the Annapolis Heritage Commission, this has been thoroughly reviewed now. And I don't think that he would, he's not a historian, so I think he would be happy to know that credentialed people, local people had reviewed it. But I would also favor getting the National Park Service logo on there, because I think that it says it's on the trail, and I think that still has, people respond to the National Park Service. They have a good reputation for the most part. So I think I can work on this pretty quickly. And Robert, you just, tell me how it's going to work. I think I can get it done and get it back to you fairly soon, within, let's say, a week, because of because I've got this huge grant that I'm working on right now. But I think within 7 to 10 days, I should be able to integrate the comments that have been made and go from there. Gee,
Well, Ellen, I'm not sure that Robert has your email address, so I will send you both, including John, an email and say, it was nice to have you, and this is Robert's email. But we will, as a commission, we don't meet for another couple months, but we can meet offline and agree to review it. So even though we don't have a meeting for a couple months, we can still, we've done this before when there was a project that we wanted to move forward.
That's very good. And then I think, and John, you should advise me on this. We still need, your commission is the one that actually issues the permits for the signs. Is it, or is it the Heritage Commission or the Historic Preservation?
No, it's in this case, it's the Heritage Commission. This is actually out of the historic district.
So John's is assigned to our commission, Ellen.
Yes.
But to Sam's earlier point, she would also need to go before Art and Public Places, correct? With the revision?
The artwork, yes. Not the text, just the whatever art goes on it, which is evidently going to shift a little bit now.
Yep.
Perhaps.
So that's another review.
Yeah.
But we can guide you through that, Ellen.
All right, and Robert, I may want to speak to you because acquisition of licensing to art is not. I need to go back and read that letter in detail, and then if I have your email, I still want to direct some questions to you before I even try to make any revisions to it.
That's fine. I'll look forward to it.
Hello.
This
is Alma. I could not get through on my computer. It kept saying the wrong passcode. And I am on my phone, but I did listen in to the lady that was talking about the passageways and all. But we've been talking about that sign, how long. And I think it's time to put it to rest. And I like all the ideas that was suggested of the things that we need to do. to get that done.
Thanks, Alma.
Yeah,
well,
I.
I'm
So,
sorry you
we'll see.
couldn't
I
get
don't know.
through on the Zoom, but we're glad you could join us by phone.
Yeah, I tried for about a half an hour, but I want to know what those numbers were. I need to know those numbers because I had them. That was on the email. And okay, going back to where we were. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Alma. So
Let you know I was
Ellen,
here.
oh, okay. We did see your phone number. So Ellen, we just have a couple more things to discuss on our commission tonight. So we're going to thank you for joining us. And I will certainly send an email as soon as the meeting's over to you so we can all connect, and also invite you to that. Really, I think you'd enjoy working with us at the Signage meeting next week.
Oh, always more to learn. But
Yes, it'll be fun.
I'm going to take this opportunity to thank all of you. And I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to have a completely frank exchange, and that you know a little bit more about our organization. And I really do, I hope you do Annapolis 250, and I really do appreciate your feedback. And I certainly look forward to working with all of you in the very near future. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Ellen.
All righty. Bye now.
Thank you,
Bye
Alan.
now.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
So commissioners, we just have a couple more items on our agenda. And I just wanted to thank you all for such being outstanding historians and professionals that you are, and just want to tell you that it is absolutely a pleasure to work with all of you. Felt like we had a very successful meeting today, and it was really very enlightening to learn so much more about this project that I had no idea. So it was a nice learning all about that. And Alma's right, we've been talking about this for quite a long time. I did want to share with you that I have connected with the Art and Public Places Commission, and that I'm going to invite them to our next meeting with your permission. And I believe you gave me permission before, but I just wanted to update you on that. I'm of the mind that it's better to have conversations with people face to face if we can. So hopefully in July we can have that conversation. I think that if Robert and John and anyone else who wants to join a small little email communication, I have had wonderful conversations with Ellen over the last week. So I really felt good about her wanting to come and talk to us. And I felt that that was very well handled. And let's work together to move this whole process forward and help her, because she was very excited to come to Annapolis last week, and she's going to come to the event on the 19th. So it's nice to have good relationships with people when we can. But I do want to, we do have some events and to support several events in March, not just for Maryland Day, but also HA has some events. And I would like, I know Watermark has a couple of events, one that I really hope we can get some folks to join Richard Hillman on a parole walk. And that's Saturday, March 26th from 10:30 to 12:30. And he's going to be joined by Alderman Rhonda Pindle is going to join Richard Hillman on that walk, and they're meeting at the Walter Mills Parole School parking lot at 10:30. So I'll give Alma some more details and Todd Powell, and hope that he can spread the word about that. But if you're interested and you want to, Richard Hillman said you don't have to RSVP, just show up at 10:30 at the Parole Mills Elementary School, and he will give you that. The Walter Mills parole school. Parking lot is where the tour begins. And that's at 10:30. And I know that I believe Reed and Karen had some announcements for March.
Yeah, I think you all have heard this, and we had mentioned it last time, and I was planning to bring these in case we were in person, but this is our grand opening celebration for the Museum of Historic Annapolis at 99 Main. It's going to be an outdoor tented event. We were very pleased to learn that Governor Larry Hogan is going to be speaking along with the county executive and the mayor of the city of Annapolis. We have state and county and city citations. We're going to do a ribbon cutting ceremony in front of the museum. So the kickoff is at 10 o'clock for the speeches outside the tent in the tented area. And then we've got the big scissors and we're going to do the ribbon cutting at 11. And then we have a series of events going on all day at the museum and also at our partner sites. We're going to be opening up the waterfront warehouse with new interpretive panels. Some of our partner organizations are going to be doing some demonstrations in front of the museum. I think the museum is going to be open from 11 to 5. So we invite anybody and all to come. It's free and open to the public. Just excited to share this new museum. And that's the second point I wanted to bring up is if you haven't had a chance to come see it, our curator and the head of our education department are happy to host a private tour or curator-led tour. We could host something together, or if you want to do something independently, just let me know. Just send me a text or an email, and we can facilitate that for you, either in advance of the event or afterwards. I also wanted to mention at the last meeting, we talked about the Sinclair Wright signage. That old sign that we had found, and it is currently in the process of being refurbished, and that's going to be done in kind of partnership with the city. John and I have worked a little bit about this. This is part of what we decided to do was refurbish that sign as part of Dick Israel's gift to the city as a way to recognize Sinclair Wright. And just recently received approval from the Maryland Historical Trust because they have an easement on the exterior of the property at 99, and then received approval from the city. Thank you, John, for allowing us to go ahead and erect that sign on the Green Street side of that building. And it's historically, we call that building the Sinclair Wright Center. It's a great way to recognize her and her contributions to the city and for historic preservation. So that'll be put up and hopefully up in place in advance of our grand opening celebration on the 19th. I think that's all I had. I know that the Pride of Baltimore is going to be coming as part of the Maryland Day celebration that week following. I guess that's the 26th. That's something that the state has been working on with the gavel that's being made out of the Y oak. So there's a lot of really wonderful celebratory things going on for the month of March, and we'll continue to keep you apprised as things develop. Thank you, Marcy. And thank you for your leadership, by the way, on the interpretive plaque discussion earlier this evening. I thought that was very well done.
Yes, I think was very successful. And thank you again, everyone. Did we lose Reed, or is he still with us? Because he did have some announcements.
I think he's off.
Well, is he still with us?
No, I don't see him on screen.
All right. So just, I know that he's hosting an event up at the state capitol on Saturday morning. And I think that was on the 26th. So there are a lot of things going on in town for that weekend. As Karen had mentioned, I know at Hogshead, there's lots of events going on that some of us are involved with. So get out and about for Maryland Day, and I hope to see you all at the celebration for 99 Maine. It's very exciting, all that's going on. And do we have any other comments or anything that somebody else would like to share? John, did you have any updates for us?
Well, I think I'm probably just echoing what everyone else has said, but I think, extremely well done on the Eastport sign, Marcy. That was, she was really a breath of fresh air considering what we've been up against. So thank you.
Yes. Well, she had, yes.
This is Alma.
Hi.
Hi. You were talking about the singing for the day of the celebration, that you get all of that straight, because I couldn't find anyone.
Karen, did we get singers?
We are still looking for singers. Mrs. Cropper, if you know of anyone, we were hoping to work with, I want to say is it Asbury that was unavailable? I could be confusing if it's Mount Zion. One of them doesn't have a choir. The other one was unavailable. We do have the Naval Academy Brass Band that's going to be presenting, and I want to say one other band, but what we're really looking for is a choir.
But what? So can I share?
Yes, please.
Can I share this with you? Because of the COVID, a lot of the churches were closed.
Yeah.
And the churches are trying to come together now. And if the churches were opened, I don't think you would have a problem.
Yeah.
But for someone to sing a solo or something like that, I know a young man and he probably would. So I don't know what your idea for the day is. You just want to do the brass band. That all sounds good. So.
Well, if you would, why don't I give you a call tomorrow? I would love to get the name of that individual, because we wanted sort of a diverse programming. We're really excited. Chris Haley is going to be doing a poetry reading. We have Squire Fred, who's going to be reading out the proclamations. So it's going to be fun. But we would love a soloist or a choir to complement the suite of offerings.
What are you looking? Excuse me. What are you looking for in the singing or a solo? What are you looking for?
I am not on the planning team on this. I think they wanted a gospel choir would have been ideal. But and to your point about COVID, with respect to that, that's why we decided to do it as an outdoor tented event. We didn't know where the state of the pandemic would be in the early planning stages, and we thought people would feel most comfortable if we did it outside. So we could provide an opportunity for a little bit of distance, and depending on how many people come. So if you think that you might have an individual that would be interested in possibly performing a brief solo, I would really love to have an opportunity to explore that further.
Well, call me and tell me what type of music the person is looking for.
Okay, I will do that. I'll make first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Call me tomorrow.
I'll give you a call in the morning.
I got an appointment in the morning. I'll be home in the morning.
Okay, so would you prefer if I reach out to you in the afternoon?
That would be good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alma.
Okay. All right.
I see that Todd Powell has joined us. Hello there, Mr. Powell. I'm sorry that we're just seeing you now.
Yeah.
But
hi, good evening. How are you? Mm-hmm.
Oh, just great. And you will, of course, share the minutes with you once we have them. And I just wanted to, one announcement, I wanted to share that there will be a parole walking tour as part of the Maryland Day celebrations on March 26th. And we have a whole list of what's going to happen on Maryland Day in Annapolis and in the surroundings on the Four Rivers website. The new name of Four Rivers is Chesapeake Crossroads, but it's still the Four Rivers website right now. We had some great news about celebrating the whole month of March.
So, yeah, exciting.
And maybe you could join it, show up for the March 19th. It would be nice if the commission could come to the March 19th event that Historic Annapolis is having, a ribbon cutting event and a big tented area down at the dock area. So that begins at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I do plan to attend that. Yes.
Oh, great, great. And,
Thank you.
and Karen, can we send something out to the whole commission just to give the details, or?
Of
'cause I know
course,
you
yeah.
had
We are
something in your
finalizing a press
hand.
release, so I'll make sure that that goes out, and then we have the invitation. So I will make sure that gets out to you by tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Karen, because we'd certainly like to be represented there and support Annapolis's
Wonderful.
efforts in this wonderful event. And that is our new businesses and our old business. And it's been a very long but informative and productive meeting. So I thank you, dear colleagues, for your hard work. And do we have anything else for the good of the cause? If not, I would be interested in entertaining a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.